Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Your Property Show with myself, Hasina Momtaz, and Kamru Ali. Just by way of brief introduction, this is our fourth episode of the programme. As I said, I'm Hasina and I'm a media and communications expert. I was in the press office at City Hall for 9 years. I've also been a broadcaster and journalist and TV presenter. With me is Kam Ali, who's the managing director of... You're going to have to remind me, I've drawn a blank.
Premier Properties.
That's what I thought it was. It was on our table yesterday. Of Premier Properties. He's an expert in the fields of accountancy, property management and financial advice. So today we're going to be talking about commercial property. We've previously spoken about auction properties and buy-to-lets, and today the focus is on commercial property. What I would like is for everyone to call in and put your questions to us today regarding commercial property. I'm going to hand you over to Kambai and he'll do a very brief introduction to our topic today.
Right, commercial property, basically commercial properties are retail properties, factories, warehouses, industrial units. They're classified in that respect for tax purposes and for rates purposes. Most people in our community we either have a lease on a commercial property or own a commercial, simply because of the restaurant trade or whatever businesses they're in. So that's what commercial properties basically is, and we're going to have a discussion on commercial properties, see if it's a good investment or not.
Okay, that's a really good start to define what it is, because a lot of people might be confused. So coming on to my second question, very briefly, and I know we'll elaborate on this a bit more, what are the reasons why people would like, good reasons for people to invest in commercial property?
Sure, one of the key reasons is you get a better return from your investment. So with residential properties, you get what, 3-4% in return for your money. Commercial properties, minimum 7-8%, and it goes upwards to 15%, whatever, depending on where the property is and who the tenant is.
I'm going to stop you there,
Yes.
just because our callers are really quick off the mark today, and we've got our first caller through.
Oh, right.
So, hello, welcome to the studio. What's your name and what's your question? Hello to our caller. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. What's your name and what's your question for Kambai?
My name is Nizam.
Hello, you're through to the studio. Would you like to ask your question?
I am speaking to the solicitor.
No, he's asking if he's talking. No, we're talking. It's a property show today. It's not legal advice today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was going to say, while you're here, you may as well ask a question.
Yeah.
But I think we've lost that caller.
Yeah.
So, and you were explaining why people should invest in commercial property.
Yeah. So one of the main reasons you get it's a better investment in terms of better rents. So better return, higher rents than a residential property. Traditionally, property investment was actually commercial property. So if you wanted to invest in property, you'd buy commercial property. I mean, in the last 20 years or so, it's been more residential properties, and it's been booming. Everybody's doing buy-to-lets. But it's always been commercial properties. You buy a property, and it used to be more steady. You have gradual growth, and the rents used to increase. But that's all changed recently, which we'll talk about more in detail. But and with all the changes recently, people are thinking about commercial properties again, because a lot of these higher taxes doesn't actually apply to commercial properties. So that's another good reason to possibly invest. And you deal with sort of professional tenants, because you're not dealing with people living in as it's more a quarterly rent or a lease that you're dealing with, and there's no repairs, because the tenant, the leaseholder, is actually taking care of all the repairs, all the maintenance, all the insurance costs. So and you don't have any eviction issues, because it's all long-term leases, and it's very easy to manage. So,
okay. It sounds like there's some very good reasons
to invest in commercial properties, yeah.
In terms of yield, relative to, say, residential property, what sort of yield on average per annum can someone expect?
The minimum that on a commercial property that people expect is around 7%, and it's upwards from 7%. So if it's a better caliber tenant, say a blue chip tenant, a brand name like Tesco or a bank, whatever, you expect a slightly lower rate, like a 7%. But if it's a independent retailer, independent shop, you could expect 10-12% return because of the risk associated with that tenant going bankrupt or in liquidation. Whereas if you've got a brand name, a blue chip company, or a government department, it's highly unlikely that they will go bust, and therefore your rent is probably guaranteed for the next 20 years. A reasonable rent. Save as houses as well. So therefore, you could take a lower return because it's such a good, safe return.
It's more of a longer term.
Yeah, longer term. So that's how it works. But if you have a small little shop in a secondary location, you expect a higher return simply because there's a risk that it could be void for 6 months or a year. So to cover that, you expect a higher return. But a lower caliber tenant. So that's how return is, but it's significantly better than a residential buy-to-let. So if you were getting £1,000 return on a flat, you expect to get £2,000 from the shop. Although in the last 10 years or so, rents haven't particularly increased in the commercial sector. I mean, it depends on location. London has, but it's simply because of the online that's taken off because people are running their businesses online. You don't necessarily need an office space or a shop space, and everything's moving more towards internet-based businesses. So,
but for now, it still makes a lot of sense to invest in commercial
property. It does, yes.
So you mentioned about the different types of tenants. I presume that location affects what kind of tenants you might get.
Absolutely, and the location is pretty much everything. It depends on what sort of rent increases you're going to have in the future, the demand of tenants, the caliber of tenants, and future saleability. So location is very much so you invest in the location, you're more likely to get a higher capital growth as well in the right location. So I think it's more high rents, more capital growth, better tenants. The more central you are to a location, the better for commercial properties, because you're not buying to live in it. It's for business purposes. So business is always better if it's close to a station or in somewhere centrally based in a town centre. So that's...
So in terms of the property values, obviously location is a key factor. One of the other things that our viewers might be wondering is if they're currently in a leasehold property and they don't own the freehold, does it make sense for them, perhaps in the longer term, to buy the freehold?
Absolutely. It's probably one of the best investments they can make, simply because instead of paying the rent, you're paying a mortgage. And you're reducing the mortgage every month if you're on a repayment, and that mortgage is also tax allowable, just like the rent is. But what a lot of business owners have over the years, that asset turns out to be their main pension, simply because they've paid it off. They could rent it to someone, or they could sell it and have a nice pension pot. So it becomes a really massive investment for them by just simply sitting there and paying off the mortgage, whereas the rent is just going to the landlord. He's enjoying the return on it. And obviously it becomes your property. You can extend it, you can do whatever if you feel like it. You can lease it to somebody else and move on. And you don't have to worry about spending the money in the property, because at the end of the day it's your property. It's not somebody else's, the landlord's property.
Does it give you some security as well in terms of rent increases?
That is a massive one, where you have rent increases. A lot of people have been pushed out of premises simply because landlords want higher rents. So that gives you quite really good security in terms of, particularly if your mortgage is fixed for a reasonable time, 5 or 10 years, it gives you that stability. You know what your monthly payments are, and you know every month at the end of your mortgage is actually decreasing, and you're building equity in that premises. So it makes absolute sense to have, to buy it. And if you can manage it for the payments for about 8-10 years, potentially it's going to be the payments are going to be significantly less than what you would pay out in rents. Because
we've got a caller on. That might be something that our next caller might even be interested in asking a question. If not, I'll come back to it. But I don't want to keep our caller waiting. So could you put the caller through, please? Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam. What's your name and what's your question?
জিনিস জানতাম আসলাম জানলাম না আপনার প্রোগ্রামের রিলেটেড কিনা আমি একটু প্রবলেম মাঝে পড়ছি বা একটা সলিউশন চাইলাম সলিউশনটা হইলো প্রবলেমটা হইলো actually I bought one property I mean is one flat and তারা আমার যে সময় সেল করতে ওই সময় লিজ হইতে বা 85 to 90 years so then যে সময় আমার mortgage হইছে বা ওটা যে সময় আমার solicitor এবং তারা solicitor correspondence হইছে তখন দেখা যায় যে এগুলি actually is not 90 years they go 62 years তো এই অবস্থার মাঝে এখন আমি প্রপার্টিটা যদি রাখিও তখন এগুলো কি আমার সলিসিটরে ফোর্স করিয়া বা তারা আবার রিনিউ করার লাগি ফোর্স করতে পারবা না আমি লইয়া একটা রিনিউ করতে হইব আর যদি রিনিউ আমি লিজ করতে হবে how long time after I mean কতদিন বাদে আমি একটা অ্যাপ্লিকেশন করতাম তো আমার ফেয়ার কি লাগবে তো পারে একটা আইডিয়া কি
তো বেসিক্যালি এটা রিনিউ করতে পারবা which is good news but একটা টাইম লিমিট আছে 2 বছর আপনি যদি ওনারশিপ থাকে আপনার 2 বছর then you have an automatic right to renew this for a further 90 years so but এটার লগে একটা কস্ট আছে ডিপেন্ড করে আপনার ফ্ল্যাটের ভ্যালু কত ইন্টারনেটে গেলে আপনি ওয়ার্ক আউট করতে পারবা এটা কস্ট কি কত যাইব কস্ট আর 90 ইয়ার্স আনার লাগিয়া so it could easily be 15-20,000 pounds additional to it so 90 years যদি দে additional আপনার 52 years আছে so you'll have another 142 years on the lease becomes good saleability আর 52 years তাহলে আপনার বেচতে বাক্কা ডিফিকাল্ট হইব এখানে মর্গেজ
I got
62 did you say okay 62 plus 90 years so এটা আবার আপনি বেচতে পারবা जो এখানে 70 years এর নিচে গেলে একটু ডিফিকাল্ট হয়ে যায় মর্গেজ আনার লাগে so আপনি নেগোশিয়েট করতে হইবা ল্যান্ডলর্ডের লগে after 2 years আপনার একটু প্রফেশনাল অ্যাডভাইস উনি নেন solicitor will serve a notice on the landlord saying the lease he wants to extend the lease by 90 years so এটা কম্প্রোমাইজ
before take over করার আগে
আপনি আপনার ওনারশিপ থাকতে হইব 2 বছর so you have to own the leasehold property for at least 2 years before you can you have a mandatory right to purchase to extend the lease so আপনি 2 বছর থাকতে হইব আপনার নামে 2 বছর না হইলেও আপনি রিকোয়েস্ট করতে পারবা ফ্রি হোল্ডারদের
বর্তমানে আমি রিকোয়েস্ট করতাম স্যার মানে আমার সলিসিটরে যে তারা সলিসিটরে যে তুমি এক্সটেনশন করিয়া দিবে কারণ বিকজ ল্যান্ডারে তো তারা জানে যে আমার তারা কইছে 85 ইয়ার্স
তো আপনি ফারবার রিকোয়েস্ট করতা বাট এটা কোনো তারে ফোর্স করতে পারতা না হে জন্য কয় ইয়েস আমি এক্সটেন্ড করমু আর আমি একটু পয়সা যেটা চাই কি ওটা আপনি নেগোশিয়েট করবা তার লগে আর যদি কই বলেন না আমি অঙ্ক এক্সটেন্ড করতাম না তুমি দ্যাটস ইট দেন আপনার রাইট আছে তারে ফোর্স করতে পারবা 2 বছর আপনার ওনারশিপ থাকা পরে আপনি ফোর্স করতে পারবা তারে সো বাট একটা প্রিমিয়াম দিতে হইবা তারে বাট you know solicitors surveyors state agents will আপনার assist করবা
roughly kila is it like 180,000 price tag করলে
যদি 180,000 or around 90 years লাগে extend করতে হইলে you're looking at around 20,000 pounds
okay
20 because আপনার লিজ কমে আছে 62 so approximately 20,000 pounds যদি আপনার নেগোশিয়েট করি আপনি 10,000 কিনতে পারেন 12,000 কিনতে পারেন দেন ইন্টারনেটে গেলে একটা জো আছে আপনার ওয়েবসাইট আছে ফর্মুলা আছে
সার্ভে আছে
যে আপনি এটা ওয়ার্ক আউট করতে পারবা so that's what it is আপনার এখানে মিসরিপ্রেজেন্টেশন যে আপনি কইদা 85 ইয়ার্স আপনি কিনেল চয়েন্স এটা you have to take legal professional advice এটা কেমন হইছে যদি আপনি বুঝতে চান you know আপনার solicitor should have explained all of this at the time of purchase okay but when you extend করিলেন then it's fine আপনার রিমর্গেজ করতে পারবা বেচতে পারবা you get but আপনার ভ্যালু বাড়বে এই যে ফ্ল্যাটর simply because এটা 62 years থাকি আপনার যাইব কি যোগিত আরো 90 years so you 152 is able so it becomes more saleability এর বাদে the price will be higher as well
Okay. That was a fantastic call.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
Thank you for calling through to us. We're going to go for a very short break, but after the break, we'll be talking about how to finance commercial property. So do stay tuned and get your questions ready and call into the studio.